There are certain fictional characters who appear on our screen, do their thing, and then fade into the background. And then there are the rare ones who appear out of nowhere like a meteor strike, blow a hole straight through the story, and end up becoming the emotional anchor, despite being around for only a short period of time. Well, given that we're foraying into the Stranger Things territory, only one such character fits the box, and that is Eddie Munson. The moment this guy swaggered onto the cafeteria table ranting about conformity and the tyranny of jocks, he just caught everyone's attention right there. We all knew this guy was going to be an absolute menace, but nobody could have assumed he would have such an unforgettable impact on all of us. Remember when he said that 86 was going to be his year?
I can feel it. 86, baby.
Well, at least we know that Season 4 of Stranger Things was definitely slave to Eddie Munson's inescapable effect. Eddie wasn't just a typical weird high school outcast. He was the patron saint of outcasts. He led a cult called the Sacred Hellfire Club. He arranged crazy D&D campaigns. He was strange, energetic, frightened, but also fearless, and just so unapologetically himself that it almost felt liberating every time he appeared on screen. And for a character who was introduced as Hawkins' freak, he truly changed the narrative and became the beating heart of Season 4. After Steve "The Hair" Harrington, I can talk about Eddie Munson endlessly, so stay with me as we discuss the Eddie Munson Effect.
Hold tight, we're coming, we're coming!
Eddie Munson's character arc really hit us like a demo bat to the chest. When we first meet Eddie Munson, he's basically the human embodiment of a 1980s moral panic pamphlet. He is the metalhead bard who walks around in a mullet, wearing more rings than fingers and the infamous Hellfire Club t-shirt. He wears it like it's his armor, and yeah, Hellfire is indeed Eddie's thing. Or should I say, it ends up being a part of his identity. I mean, it's impossible to speak of the Hellfire Club and not think of Eddie Munson. Don't believe me? Well, ask Dustin Henderson. Anyway, by the time the plot kicks in, Eddie is instantly positioned as the wrong time, wrong place sort of character, as his entire world turns upside down, literally and figuratively. One terrifying accident with Chrissy Cunningham and suddenly the whole town of Hawkins decides that he is a satanic murderer. The irony is, Eddie Munson is probably the least violent person in Hawkins. The most tragic moment happens in Eddie's trailer, where he encounters the nightmare he shouldn't have seen. Right in front of him, Chrissy died, and in the worst way possible. And in that fight-or-flight situation, his first instinct was to flee the scene. But honestly, I understand, because who among us wouldn't sprint out of a trailer if someone were levitating and being twisted into a human pretzel? Eventually, when Dustin, Max, Steve, and Robin find Eddie hiding at the boathouse, he admits he was a coward for running away, and that is what's special about Eddie. He doesn't act like a hero or a fearless savior. He shows his fear, and that's exactly what makes him so real. Eddie has always been the guy who runs in the opposite direction after sensing trouble, and this is why his character development hits hardest when he goes out as the brave one. What he didn't expect was Dustin and others to believe him.
Well, we can't rule it out.
Yes, we can.
Dustin!
You don't know him like I do, Max.
Because the entire town of Hawkins was busy framing him as a scapegoat. Honestly, to any average Stranger Things fan, that wasn't even an inch of surprise, because those kids have really been through some diabolical shit. Anyway, when Dustin explained about the Upside Down, it was the first time he came close to experiencing the hellish dimension. Over the course of the season, Eddie then becomes part of the crew, gaining trust, building friendships, and just developing an immense sense of responsibility. Alongside the group, he also tackles the creatures of the Upside Down, which is far from easy. Remember when Steve was pulled into the Upside Down through the water gate when he dived into the river? At that moment, Eddie was second-guessing everything, but he took the last dive after Robin anyway. But once he was in the Upside Down, it was all pure adrenaline. He was swinging those paddles at the demo bats while contemplating his entire existence, and also saving Harrington from getting strangled to death by the demo bats. Right after the fight, we see Steve and Eddie slowly bonding, because before this, their interactions weren't really all that friendly. I guess Steve's fighting skills and his protective instincts really blew Eddie away, and that changed his entire perspective towards Steve. But most importantly, did you notice how Eddie was low-key being a Steve and Nancy shipper? Well, he really encouraged Steve to not let his love for Nancy go, which is probably why he seems so hell-bent on impressing her in Season 5. But fast forward to the last episode, where they decide to go to the Upside Down for the final showdown to put an end to Vecna. That's where we encounter Eddie climbing onto the top of his trailer, shredding Metallica's Master of Puppets as the red lightning cracks through the sky and the Demo Bats swirl around him. What I wouldn't give to have that feeling of experiencing that iconic cinematic adrenaline for the first time. It's just one of those scenes that transcends the show itself. It was everything Eddie ever wanted to be. Loud, bold, and unapologetically himself. It was indeed the moment. Coming back to the plot, Eddie knew it wasn't the time to keep his promise to Steve, who had specifically asked him not to act like a hero and abort the mission if anything goes sideways. But once he made sure Dustin was out of the Upside Down, Eddie chose to stay back to buy more time. Even if he was terrified, this time he didn't run away. Because by this point, Eddie had learned that running doesn't save anyone. But unfortunately, he forgot to save himself.
I didn't run away this time, right?
That was one of the most heartbreaking points of the show. Just like Dustin, I think none of us ever fully healed from the way Eddie went out. In his final moments, he proved everyone wrong, even himself. Because he wasn't a coward, ever. He didn't run away again, and 1986 really became his year. Lastly, that "I love you" he said to Dustin while lying in his arms and coughing up blood really still sting. In Season 5, we see Dustin turn from his usual goofy, curly-haired, big-hearted self to a brooding cynic who's doing his best to make sure Eddie's legacy lives on in a town that still considers him to be a murderer. It would really be a crime to talk about Eddie Munson without mentioning his friendship with Dustin Henderson. They might have the most interesting dynamic in the entire series. From the moment these two chaotic, nerdy outcasts crossed paths in Season 4, it was like the universe personally approved of the duo. Dustin strolls into the Hellfire Club with the confidence of someone who's found his genre of people, and Eddie immediately clocks him as a kid with just the right combination of passion and weirdness. Was it not sweet how everyone side-eyed Eddie's whole dramatic Dungeons & Dragons master persona and considered him childish, but Dustin treated it like the gospel. They synced up real fast, even finishing each other's nerdy sentences like they shared the same brain cells and reacted to the campaign twists like they were witnessing some major world event. But their connection truly deepens once the supernatural chaos rolls in, because nothing can strengthen a friendship better than being in a life or death situation together. When Chris's death pulls Eddie into the upside-down nightmare, Dustin butts in as he believes in Eddie's innocence and makes it his mission to find him and help him out. Eventually, Dustin gives him the preview of what it's like in the Upside Down. Chris's accident wasn't something that Eddie could have undone. Right then, Eddie realized that Dustin wasn't just an overexcited freshman, but a guy who would stay by his side and believe him when things go sideways. Their bond grew so strong that he even became jealous of Steve, because Henderson always spoke so highly of him. Remember that scene in Episode 7, right after fighting the Demobats, when Eddie tells Harrington how Dustin worships him, insists that he was an absolute badass and is basically his #1 fan. I don't think Eddie had any idea just how much he meant to Dustin as well. Also, in case you forgot, the upside-down bike escape was possibly the most iconic moment for their duo. Their chaotic pedaling from saving their asses kicked by the Demobats was peak Eddie and Dustin energy. Through his constant support, Dustin implanted this belief into Eddie that he could pull off anything. And Eddie kind of internalizes that belief as Dustin refuses to let him see himself as a coward because of a single mistake. It's safe to say that their bond helped Eddie to change his perspective on himself. The heart-wrenching scene where he endearingly asks Henderson to never change.
Promise me? I wasn't planning on it.
Is the emotional crown jewel, because I really bawled my eyes out in that scene. But it's even more painful to see how much Henderson has changed in Season 5. He's lost his golden boy energy, his hearty, geeky smile, his light. Basically, everything that defined Dustin almost seems to have died with Eddie. He made it his motto to keep the Hellfire alive after Eddie was gone, because it was something that Eddie had entrusted to him in the very first episode of Season 4. I feel it was the only way he coped with his death, because by continuing his legacy, he was really just trying to keep Eddie's memories alive by still wearing the Hellfire t-shirt and wearing his hair just like Munson did in Season 4. Having said that, Eddie was a huge mentor in teaching Dustin what acceptance really meant. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the Harrington and Henderson duo. Their scenes make me feel like eating a hot fudge on a winter wreath. They give off a major sibling vibe. That's why it almost feels punishing to see how distant they seem in Season 5. Okay now, without going off track again, we see how Eddie's friendship with Dustin developed right from the beginning of Season 4. Just like Steve, he too had a very strong bond with Dustin, but they each had different effects on him. Both of them definitely helped him grow to be a better person, but their ways were just different. Steve kinda helped Dustin level up his confidence by being like the cool big brother who pushes him to be brave and take charge, whether it's about fighting monsters or handling social stuff, like making an impression wherever he goes, especially among the girls. Harrington even gave Dustin the secret to his perfectly sexy hair, and also drove him to the snowball at the end of Season 2. Steve never phased from hyping Dustin up or making him feel like a hero, especially because Dustin has always been anxious in social settings, and he needed that boost Steve always handed over to him. Now, on the flip side, Eddie taught Dustin that it was totally okay to be his goofy, nerdy, and quirky self without trying to change for anyone. To him, conformity was overrated anyway, and he made Dustin swear by it too. He indeed taught Dustin that being different was actually his strength and not his weakness. So we know that in his last moments when he said, "Never change, Henderson," he truly meant it from the bottom of his heart. He says it with this proud, big brother softness that he hides beneath his sarcasm and metalhead bravado, but it's just his way of telling Dustin that he was perfect and exactly who he was always supposed to be. In my opinion, Eddie is one of the best written characters by the Duffer Brothers, and once you're in for the ride, well, no one can really escape the Eddie Munson Effect. The urge to curse the universe for killing a character like him is just so real, because I truly miss him. The amount of life he brought to the previous season was unmatched, and that's why you can still feel his presence through the surviving characters in Season 5. Well, I'm gonna go listen to Master of Puppets for the nth time this month, but hey, you guys, don't forget to let us know in the comments, are you too vexed by the Eddie Munson Effect?